everyone, I am here with Tamara Larson, who is a new cabinet member from Women United. Tamara, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Tamara Larson. I am the CEO and founder of Grow Leaders and Learn Peace Canada. I'm very excited to be a new member of the Women United Cabinet here at the United Way in the Alberta Capital Region. The work I do is based on a foundation of psychological health and safety, mental health, empowering women, and really creating safe spaces in whatever forum I'm in so that we can build sustainable cultures of peace and create a world where really no one is left behind.
Oh, that was a great introduction.
Thank you.
So, I got a few questions for you. The first one was, how has your involvement in the Women United Cabinet enabled you to utilize your commitment to mentoring young leaders to positively impact women, and can you provide examples of specific actions or projects you've undertaken in this role?
Oh, thank you for that question. A lot of the work that I do is mentoring young leaders. And I can honestly say, although perhaps they look to me for mentorship and advice, they offer me a lot more in a reverse mentorship role. And of course, mentorship is so important in our lives, and I think that we undervalue that. So, when working with young leaders, they're looking for examples, they're looking for people to open doors, they're looking for guidance, personal, professional. But what's really interesting is they really pay attention to what we do, not so much what we say. So, when you take on roles, our time and our talents are our most valuable resources. And in my career path as I have moved forward, I'm learning to strategically say yes to things. So, working with Women United aligns very closely with my values and goals in working to remove systemic barriers. So taking on this role in Women United Cabinet has really offered me the opportunity to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So these young people that I work with, they see Tamara's out in the community and she really is empowering women and girls, and she's working with the local community and she's finding ways for us to grow and learn, and she's taking what she's learned from the other women on the United Cabinet back to us. So mentoring young people is about walking the walk, it's about taking our wisdom and knowledge, passing it on, but more importantly, it's about investing in them. We invest in them, we invest in their future. So really, there's just such a big topic there and so much to share, but every year I take 24 young leaders from across Canada and now internationally to Winnipeg, Manitoba in August to what we call the Rotary Adventure in Human Rights Program. It is a week-long National Human Rights Leadership Program that we do in collaboration with the Canadian Museum for Human Rights.
Wow.
And these young people come to Winnipeg, they don't know each other. They get to know each other, they get to know me, and we spend a week talking about some really big topics in human rights. So gender equity, genocide, immigration versus refugee status, when rights are denied, truth and reconciliation, all kinds of things, because human rights topics don't work in silos. So being part of Women United, I get to take the local aspect, integrate it into the international aspect, as well as bring into the Canadian aspect at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So that's simply one way of mentoring young people. When I founded Learn Peace Canada, which is a peace education organization and focusing on human rights leadership, it was to work with educators, educational institutions, community organizations, and young leaders to open the doors for them to have a voice about social justice causes. And as I built the board, it was almost an all-female board. I have a youth advisory council, which is comprised of young men and young women, because they need a voice. What do they want to learn? What do they want to talk about? How are they going to do things? And how can we help and support them in their goals and their causes? So there's so many ways to mentor not only other women and other young men and young people, but it's about how can we help them create impact in the community and create the change they wish to see. And Women United is such an honor to be part of that cabinet and to share that knowledge and to bring it all together, because none of these things work in silos.
Wow, that is, I'll be completely honest, it's quite profound what you bring to Women United as a cabinet member, and that you're able to give these young adults the opportunity of a lifetime to come and dispute human rights. And as you said, human rights is so vast and there's so many different topics and you can't silo them.
No.
So that's quite incredible.
When you look at poverty and women, we have 50,000 children here in Edmonton living in poverty. My guess would be of those 50,000 children living in poverty, their parents and mothers are probably single mothers or single parents. They're probably earning minimum wage at $15 an hour, and yet a living wage is a minimum of $22 an hour for just the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So poverty and wages and the right to education and transportation and food security, everything is combined. So whether it's on an international scale, a national scale, or a local scale, these challenges they're global, for lack of a better word.
Oh, absolutely, and especially with the rise of inflation nowadays, and it just seems there's almost a lack of acknowledgement to how much or who this is affecting, and on a larger scale, how many people are truly being affected. So
Yes.
to be able to voice your concerns and be able to create an open dialogue, that's quite an impactful thing to bring to the table.
Of course it is. When people feel safe or there's a circle of trust, they will come forward with their real concerns. And that's what we talk about, creating safe spaces. And to create a safe space is all about psychological health and safety and being conscious of people's mental health and well-being. And if workplaces don't offer that, you see productivity go down, you see absenteeism. You have a single mom and her kids are sick, but she can't afford to take a day off work. So what does she do? Can we not create a safe space where this woman has the opportunity to work from home? Or she can make up the time otherwise? Certainly during the pandemic, we found that we could do things differently. And I think we're forgetting some of those lessons, and I'm hoping working with organizations and creating these safe spaces to have these important dialogues and understanding that, if you don't create that safe space, people aren't going to be mentally or physically healthy, which, in today's world, everybody's looking at the bottom line. It does impact the bottom line. So it's all about building trust and respect and opportunities for people to come forward. And I heard recently that our mental health system is broken. Well, I'm not sure it's broken. I don't think we built it yet. And I think that that's the next step as we move forward. We're just starting to see, what do we really need? How can we support young people? How can we support mothers? How can we support fathers? How can we support families? We're seeing a rise of mental illness. And I think that is true. We're seeing things we have never seen before.
Yes.
Addiction, which leads to increase in mental health issues, which leads to homelessness, which leads to crime, which leads to, it goes like this: what's the chicken or the egg? It's that whole scenario. So we have to create those safe spaces where we're willing to talk about these topics, remove the stigma, and find a solution. We don't tell people that have cancer to be shamed because they have cancer. We don't tell diabetics not to take their insulin. We tell people you've got a cold, stay home. But we don't often see mental health, and people are afraid to talk about it because there's such a stigma. So opening that door and always creating that safe space to land in that circle of trust really matters, because it's always the relationships that help us succeed.
You know what, this topic that we have just started talking on is so vast, but it leads us perfectly into our next question, which is, why are you involved with Women United? What brought you here?
Wow, that's an important question. As I said, I've been learning to say strategically yes rather than no, but I think there's something to be said. We can't do everything as much as we would like to. A few years ago when I founded Grow Leaders to work with empowering women, creating these safe spaces and removing systemic barriers, and then Learn Peace Canada after that, I grew up in a home where we were from a middle class. I had wonderful parents. My mom was a teacher, my dad owned a business. We were taught so many things. But the one thing that was deeply ingrained in us as children, my brother and I, and growing up, was that when you have much, you have great responsibility to do much.
Yeah.
And that's giving back of your time, your talent, your resources. And it's offering a hand up. And at different points in your life, it's sometimes volunteering, sometimes it's sweat equity, sometimes it's writing a check, sometimes it's all of that. But it's all kinds of different ways, and everybody does it differently. So as a woman, I've always had great privileges. I've had good education. I was always told there's no such word as cannot. If you can't find one way, go another way. You can't, plan A doesn't work, well, you've got 25 other letters in the alphabet, so you better find the right one. And I was always told it doesn't matter if you're a woman, man, rich, poor, whatever, you should have the same rights. Pursue your dreams, because there's no such thing as no. And so I had that privilege, but as I have worked in my life, and I'm now often the oldest one in the room instead of the youngest, I see things from a different lens. So how do we remove those barriers that 30 years ago I faced coming into the workforce that are still very present? And how disappointing is that? So, working and empowering women and looking at the challenges young girls face today and their futures, how can I make a difference? So when the opportunity to become part of Women United, this very dynamic group of women who are change makers and wanting to create change in the world, what an opportunity for me to work with this like-minded community, this tribe, this village, to create the change we all want to see. And it's such a diverse group, and although I'm still one of the newest ones, I've learned so much from the few times we've been together and what we're doing. And I'm just so excited to work with this group of women as we look at creating change and impacting the lives of women and families in our local community. Because we often get focused on the international aspect, and we forget that women here in our own communities and girls need just as much support. And we can do so much with our volunteering, with our financial resources, with the partnerships that we have with other key stakeholders and organizations. I saw it as an opportunity to, as you say, do local good, but also to network and to just really be part of a tribe that really can create impact on something that matters so much to me.
Wow, there's something to be said about recognizing, something that really stays with me, is you have to help who's in your own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely agree with your sentiment when it comes to recognizing that there are people here, like locally, that, yes, I understand that we do have a global need to recognize this across the board, but there's also people here that we can help and address and help uplift and mentor and ensure that their current needs are being met, or at least try to help them in some way and support them here.
Yes.
And then obviously hopefully expand out into the global stages, which now going into our beautiful third question is your commitment to addressing both international and local needs for women and girls is commendable. It truly is, and listening to your stories has been nothing but awe-inspiring. Could you elaborate on how your experience on a global stage now have informed your approach to supporting women and girls within your local community? And what initiatives have you tried to implement to address these needs?
Sure. I think that there's truth in that. As a Rotarian, I have been offered some amazing opportunities, as an ordinary individual to do extraordinary things. And having worked with young leaders for many years, I was approached to be part of the Empowering Girls Ambassadors, which are a global initiative. So that's sort of addressing the needs of women globally. So, you look at that, and there's 960 million people in this world out of 7 billion that are considered illiterate. 2/3 of that are women.
Wow, really?
Really.
Oh my gosh.
You look at that and you think, wow, that's kind of crazy. There are so many statistics that you could go through, but we make up, as women, 50% of this world's population.
Yeah.
Yet we hold 23% of parliamentary roles. As peace, when we are facing now, the world is in chaos. We've got a war in Ukraine, we've got the crisis going on in Gaza with Israel. There are no women at the table. We don't have this role.
Yeah.
And we look at this, and there are 60 million girls that have been sexually assaulted on their way to school every day in the last 3 years. Of the millions of people that are human trafficked, 51% are women and 20% are girls. But I think, we looked at these international stats, and then I get this North American statistic that 1 out of every 4 girls ages 15 to 19 believe that domestic violence is acceptable in some situation.
Wow.
And I was gobsmacked, and I went, pardon? So then I thought, okay, I have to do a little bit of digging here, right? So as a Canadian, we live lives of great privilege. Yet we have challenges we need to face. We make, as women, 71 cents on every dollar for our male counterparts.
That's correct.
And so you look at that and you think, okay, so you do a lot of work, you're dealing with what's happening in Afghanistan and Gaza and all these places, but then I think, I wonder how many women and girls here are affected by things like period poverty, or no access to transportation, or, you know, when the pandemic hit, you know, a lot of women lost their jobs because they were in the industries that were most greatly impacted: service, hospitality, the medical profession, nurses, teachers. And the workload and the childcare was exponentially on our shoulders as women. So you take that step back and you go, okay, we have work to do in our own community. So most recently, in October, I was invited to go to Geneva, to the United Nations, as part of the Women's Leadership Peace Emerging Leaders Program. I was one of 15 women invited to go for a week. And we had women there from the Ukraine, Geneva, the Netherlands, the US, Nigeria, Kuwait, Syria, Iraq. I mean, very, very diverse group.
Yeah.
I was the oldest one in the room. That was the first time ever. That's okay. But a very different lens, right?
Yes.
And as I listened to all of these women in that room, living in really war-torn regions, thinking, am I here as a Canadian? Am I a hypocrite? And there was one question that had a really big impact. And they were asking us, going on there and asking us questions, but they asked each of us, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay. And we got to these young Ukrainian ladies, and she says, in all honesty, if I'm still alive. And I went, oh, and the tears started to flow. And I could not stop crying for several hours because I thought, wow. And then I thought, at the end of the week, after some very life-changing moments, really, and different perspectives, I said, you know, I'm here as a Canadian, I don't really know what I have to offer. And the answer for the resounding around the room was, Tamara, you have so much to offer. You have a perspective of what it is to live in a peaceful nation and what we strive to be, and we don't know what that is. And we need you to keep doing what you're doing. And so I went, okay, I have a purpose. And as I was flying home with my colleague and we were talking about what are we going to do when we get back to Canada, how are we going to relay this to the young people we work with, and working with organizations in the community, what kind of impact are we going to have? How are we going to create peace in our society? Because we are a peaceful nation, but we have things that are not peaceful. Our crime rates are skyrocketing.
Yes.
So we look at this and go, okay. So we come back to this and go, we need to create peace in our own society. And so being part of Women United means that I can take what I've learned and use these peace building skills that we use on an international level in our own organizations and in our own communities, because conflict is conflict. And we have things that we need to understand culture better. We need to deal with domestic violence, with non-violent ways of dealing with violence, and all of these tools. And we're going to take those tools and make them of great use and bring them forward. So how can we as women take on stronger roles and open doors and remove systemic barriers? I'm launching a new organization, well, not organization, probably initiative, called Empowering Women for Peace. And it will teach women how to use nonviolent communication tools, nurture their self-confidence, teach them how to use their voice, be assertive. Not in a direct way, but use your voice. You have a voice, use it. You have skills, you have talent, you have education. How do we open these doors for these young women who are graduating from university? I've spent hours raising money for their scholarships and writing letters. And how can I support the women in my organizations? And how can I support women in other organizations? It's about using my voice. It's about speaking when I get the chance. It's about working with businesses and community organizations and not-for-profit boards to understand the role of women and the importance of women. And how do we collectively address the issues that we are facing as a society?
In that alone, that is some very powerful words and powerful initiatives that you're trying to get implemented and bringing awareness to. Because you're right, it is so needed, and we need to lift each other up as a communities and be able to open those doors for each other. Because without it, no one can do anything alone, right?
We need to have a tribe.
You do. I think that's just so important, and the fact that you're starting a new initiative, a new program to really get this off the ground, to create a safe space for women to talk about, to, again, open up doors, break down barriers for them. That's incredibly important and something that truly is required in nowadays times.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said though, reflecting on your own journey, with mentors who open doors and change your life, how do you approach paying it forward with your mentorship endeavors? Yeah?
Yeah, mentorship is, as I said earlier, is so very important. As I reflect back on my journey, and I've had an amazing journey of so many different mentors, but the mentors in my life have created a circle of trust where I could be myself. I could bring forward ideas. I could talk about things. They could say to me, Tamara, that's really good. Tamara, no, don't go there. If you go there, this is what's going to happen. But there was always that honesty without the fear.
Yeah.
And so you look at that and you think, how can I pay it forward? Because I wouldn't be where I am without that. Whether my parents have been terrific mentors to me. Yeah. It's amazing. My dad said how smart he got when I turned 25, but it is true, right? And my mom they're very wise, right?
Yeah.
And but the circle of women and even some men in my world as my mentors is really important to have that. So, it's important to pay it forward. So when I look at these young women and these young men that I work with and we work with together collectively as a community and paying it forward, it's really important to meet people where they are.
Wow.
So whether I work, in with businesses and organizations or young people, it's important for me to sit down and say, how can I support you? And meeting people where they are helps me understand their questions and their needs and what they want, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
But coming to the table and working really hard every day at putting my own biases aside, because we all have them, right? And they sort of spring forward some of that, but it's meeting people where they are. So these young people, they come forward, we go to Winnipeg or work on workshops, or we do initiatives, or we develop online resources, whatever we're doing with these young people and these young women. In the last 5 years, 5 years, probably 6, there's been 4 young women that have come forward and wanted to be global grant scholars with Rotary International, which is one of the biggest scholarship organizations in the world. So myself, along with my mentors and some other mentors, we literally raised tens of thousands of dollars to send these young women all over the world to pursue their master's degrees. So, that's one way.
Yeah.
You look at that, we take young men and women to Winnipeg to do this human rights leadership program, and it's life-changing. It's life-changing for me to go and watch these kids, and every time I go, I learn so much, but I learn so much from them. It's about that text at 3 a.m. when they're struggling, and believe me, I get many of those. But when I say to them, or I say to anybody, my phone is on 24/7, I mean it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that conversation at 2, 3 a.m. than other times. So, you can offer that text, you can offer that guidance, you can help them write scholarship letters, you can donate your clothes to Dress for Success, you can volunteer. But, mentorship, as I've stated, is walking the walk. So, when I say to these young people or anybody, that this is what I do, this is what I believe in, I invest my time and my talents and my energy in things like Women United and Learn Peace Canada and Grow Leaders and Rotary International. And being a woman in Rotary International in itself is being a mentor. Because although Rotary is a very large global organization with 1.4 million members in 200 countries, we didn't have our first female president until last year. After 115 plus years.
Yeah.
So, as a woman, and you work with that, and you walk the walk, and you break those glass ceilings, and you smile, and you have conversations. Every conversation is an opportunity to be a mentor. So I take that role as mentor very seriously. But more importantly for me, the reverse mentorship is probably one of the most valuable tools I have in my world to grow and be better every day. So when I hear these young people come to me and say, this is my perspective, this is what I'm worried about, this is their future. We've had our chance, or I've had my chance, But, when we invest in them, we invest not only in our future, but in their future.
Yes.
And that will create a better and more peaceful world. So when we work with young people, it is so rewarding. It's also probably the most challenging. But we also know that nothing easy that comes easy in life is worth having. It's the things that are hard, or the things that we have to work hard for, or the things that we're challenged with, where we learn the most and we have the most respect and gain because it means something. So mentorship matters, and I take that role very seriously, but it's also one that brings me such joy.
Well, it's great to hear all that you have to say, especially in regards to like reverse mentoring and the fact that you have the ability to, you allow them, you tell them it's okay to text me at 3 a.m.
It is.
The support, and I think sometimes people don't understand that a lot of people just are looking for support, the knowledge that you can reach out to them.
Yes.
You will be there.
Mm-hmm.
You're here to help them. And that alone, I think, having a support system pushes people further than they are. And like you said, you have to meet them where they are. And
I think sometimes what's really important is people want to be heard.
yes.
They want their voices to be heard, whether it's a conversation with Tamara or it's a forum where they can be heard, where we can open social media channels or give them the opportunity to be part of something to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
Always. And I think that in conflict, or where there's things that there's, you know, you're at loggerheads, the best thing we can do is let people speak. And know that their voices are heard, because the chances of when you're working on a project or you're working with people, we all know this, that when diversity is at the table brings great strength, but you have to work with that and have a safe space where everybody can bring their ideas to the table, and then you come up with a compromise, and nobody gets everything they want, but they all get a little something.
Yeah.
And honestly, the projects where we've had the most diverse teams, whether it's age, race, religion, anything, we've come up with the most dynamic programs, ideas, initiatives, because we're addressing not one view, but a mosaic or a melting pot of ideas that really help us all to learn and grow. But we must have those safe spaces where people can speak, where they feel they're heard, where they're respected, where there's trust. And you go back to the core values I have. I talk about, you know, trust and respect and honesty, but compassionate action is something that I really believe in. And, you know, to me, that means listening to understand, not to respond, and to being open to new perspectives, understanding biases, and working together to really believe in the strength in our diversity. But compassionate action is really, really important.
Well, that's incredible to hear, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming here today to the United Way and speaking to us. It's been a pleasure learning about who you are, the cabinet, why you were drawn to the United Way Women's Cabinet, and just really getting to know you and your initiatives. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here tomorrow. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for the opportunity to share and just to be part of the United Way, and I so look forward to working with everybody moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.